So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. As I said, some familiar names and faces, so that's great to see you back again. This is our sixth webinar in our refresh series and the last for this year, of course. So this is the last one for 2025. This 30-minute webinar this week is on the topic of adding value to your home. My name is Sarah. You'll be joined by Sam and Ollie. They're our London-based renovation experts, and they're going to be talking you through this webinar tonight. So 30 minutes, that's what we're aiming for. There is some Q&A time at the end, but do feel free to pop some questions in as we go along, and then we can get onto them as soon as we finish at the end of the presentation. So I'm just going to go through quickly what we're going to cover today, just so that you can see what's coming up. Sam, if you can pop that slide on, that would be great.
Sorry, that should be on there now.
It's all right, it's taking its time.
I think it's just giving more people a chance to join before we start.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, for those of you that are joining us, I can see some coming through, just welcome. We're just going to go through what we're going to cover in this webinar tonight. So tonight we're going to talk through adding value to your home. We're going to talk about trendy versus timeless designs. This is often a question we get asked. We're going to look specifically at some designs and some renovation projects that increase value to your home. We're also going to give some advice about some choices to avoid, some common mistakes that people do make. And we're actually going to cover three real life case studies to give you examples of successful projects that have added value to people's homes. We'll then talk through the refresh renovation process, how we work. And then we're going to finish with our top tips. So we've got 3 top tips to give you. And then, as I said, there'll be some Q&A at the end. But feel free, please pop your questions in the chat as we go along. I'll keep my eyes on that. And I'm just going to hand over to Sam now. Off you go, Sam.
Thank you, Sarah, and good evening, everyone. Just to double check, it's on there. It can be seen. Brilliant. Yes, good evening again, everyone. I would like to begin tonight with a well-known adage, which is popularized in this form by a senior executive in the insurance industry around a decade ago, whereby he said, price is an issue in the absence of value. Although this originated outside property, it is highly relevant to today's residential market in London. So our focus today will be directed towards value that can be added and preserved in a home and potentially extracted, whether the long-term plan is to hold and let the property or pursue an exit through sale. We will look at how decisions made during the design and construction phases of a renovation project directly influence the outcomes. Before we move on, just to give some market context into what London buyers value today, I've narrowed that down into 3 factors. So there's the buyer profile. It's usually lifestyle driven, design conscious buyers, and ones who are highly sensitive to space efficiency. The second factor is the basically premium aspects such as location, natural light, functional layouts, energy efficiency, and high quality finishes. And the third one would be the importance of a turnkey appeal, whereby many buyers are time poor and seek homes requiring minimal immediate work so that they can sort of move in quickly once they complete on a property. So when renovating with long-term value in mind, the goal is not to remove personality, but to ensure that design choices remain desirable across market cycles and buyer profiles. And this is where timeless design kicks in, because it consistently outperforms highly trend-driven schemes at resale because it appeals to the widest possible audience and ages gracefully. And on the screen, we're looking at different mood board ideas that basically comprise timeless design and different color palettes that usually work, and usually are along the lines of neutral warm palettes. In terms of colors, the light grays, off-whites, and taupe. In terms of materials, we look at classic materials, ones like stone, wood, and metal accents that usually age well with the property itself. And when it comes to joinery, we look at simplicity, so simple joinery, shaker style cabinetry, and that would be coupled with balanced lighting schemes. And last but not least here, high quality fixtures rather than highly stylized or niche design choices. Therefore, making wise choices for lasting appeal is not about, in this case, playing it safe. It's more about making smart and future-proof choices that allow for the expression of individuality through easily changeable elements that protect both lifestyle enjoyment and long-term financial outcomes. Now, keeping this in mind, we move basically into a bit more of a gray area when comparing trendy designs versus timeless designs. And this is where we're going to look at basically workable trend-driven features. Um, so these features have proven to work if used sparingly. And that could be through the use of statement lighting, such as modern pendants, sculptural lamps, feature walls in textured finishes or rich colors. That could be either with paint or other wall finishes such as wallpapering, and then boutique hotel-inspired elements, similar to what's on the top left image with a crystal style partition. Usually the go-to option is made out of steel grid frames, and then fluted panels, brushed brass hardware, which would be visible in the rest of the images there. And what frequently helps in capturing that resale value in the event where a strong stylistic choice is made is keeping it reversible. That's one. Even more than that, documenting the specifications, the warranties, and the costs, which would in turn then allow the buyers and the valuers to price the improvement more accurately so that it wouldn't just be overlooked. And from here, we move on to where trendiness backfires, and that's usually when it's taken to the extreme. Now, the images on there are beautiful. This is not to say that there's anything wrong with doing that, but in terms of return on investment, which is the focal point of our session today, bold, ultra-specific themes such as extreme color and texture choices, such as very particular layouts or bespoke built-ins that can't be removed, can narrow the buyer pool. And normally, local agents and valuation guides explicitly warn that personal taste improvements often do not capitalize unless they are reversible or appeal strongly to the target market. So common cases where we've seen trendiness backfires on projects that we've worked on are mainly overly bold tile patterns in different spaces, ultra-specific color palettes, and that is how the property, whether it's a flat or a home, is decorated, and that how that is matched with wallpaper and the consistency throughout the house. And then highly stylized kitchens or bathroom fittings that would quickly date. And I would say at the end of this is if you are considering, you are potentially considering a highly stylized element as part of your project and return on investment is a concern, for each of those proposed elements, ask the question, is it reversible? Does it reduce usable space? If the answer is yes, then that makes it a low priority element in terms of ranking within your project brief. From here, we move on to designs that tangibly increase home value, and that's across the board. We look at factors like floor plan optimization. So to give a few examples, removing unnecessary internal walls to create an open or semi-open layouts, adding utility rooms to declutter kitchens, and reconfiguring dead space. And an example on that would be, for example, under staircases, that would allow for the enhancement of storage capacity, so that can be maximized upon. A second factor would be maximizing on natural light. So whether that's within the existing spaces of the property or within new proposed ones in all forms of extensions, we look at things like skylights, enlarged windows, light tunnels in deeper terraced layouts, and other elements like light reflective flooring and paint that allow basically for the maximum influx of natural light. The third factor would be high impact finishes. So looking at items such as engineered oak flooring and solid wood flooring, durable stone or composite worktops, and premium hardware that would basically preserve its finish and longevity. And the final one is built-in storage. So in areas or in rooms where the configuration can be a bit quirky and cannot be coupled with fittings that are readily available at retailers. For example, you can do custom wardrobes, alcove shelving, and integrated cabinetry, because that will give a perceived element of luxury and additional space efficiency. So what choices is it usually so what choices are usually advised to avoid? And that will be a sort of summary of what we've covered so far. And it's items that usually reduce appeal or date quickly. The first is over personalization, as we said, and I'm going to be brief in summarizing that. So things like themed rooms, whereby there's a bold maximalist interior design specified for the renovation. Niche layouts that reduce flexibility. Here, an example could be converting bedrooms into dressing rooms without easy reversibility. The second one would be avoiding low quality materials that can basically be pointed out as laminate floors that show wear. And that is not long after they've been fitted, just because of the type of material that's in there. Um, um, so that's where usually it has to match the intended use. And budget fixtures prone to tarnishing or breakage. We see that a lot with bathroom and kitchen renovations, where low quality chrome finishes on products are applied, and these usually last somewhere along the year to 3 years mark, depending on the actual quality of that product before it needs to be replaced. The third one would be avoiding overspend on non-value adding areas, such as luxury entertainment rooms that don't resonate with most London buyers, or high maintenance gardens or ponds. And the fourth one would be avoiding layout decisions that limit use. That's another important one that we see a lot within London, whereby people sometimes remove bedrooms to create larger living areas. So that would have a direct impact on return on investment if that is not easily reversible. And another one would be eliminating baths entirely, because families usually often expect at least one bathtub within the place they're living in, especially if they've got toddlers. So what renovation projects usually deliver the best return? Here I'm going to single out a few of them, and they mainly have to do with kitchen upgrades, such as open plan configurations that improve flow, again using durable materials, modern storage solutions such as integrated appliances, pull-outs, and pantry cabinets. And the rationale behind the return on investment driver here is that kitchens consistently influence perceived home value more than any other interior upgrades. The next one would be bathroom modernization. So renovating the bathroom to allow for walk-in showers with frameless screens, high pressure fixtures, and underfloor heating. In terms of style, neutral, hotel-inspired aesthetics, as we said previously, that appeal to a broad base. And again, the return on investment rationale here is that buyers associate new bathrooms with lower maintenance risk, especially ones that have been properly renovated with an emphasis on waterproofing when they're on higher floors, because should anything go wrong within that bathroom, such as a leak, for example, then that would be contained within the bathroom itself and not spread to the rest of the property. The third and very important one is extensions in all their forms. So that could be side, rear, or basically a loft conversion, a basement conversion, or a garage conversion. These type of projects usually add additional functional living space, and that is particularly valuable in London's square foot premium environments. And the phenomenon that usually commands the strongest return is the addition of a what could be called a principal suite, which would be a master bedroom with an ensuite layout. And these usually are placed on the top floor or on the first floor, depending, of course, on the specific property that is being dealt with. And to top that off, looking at energy efficiency and systems upgrades. So consider facts like, or things like double and triple glazing, improved insulation, efficient boilers and heat pumps, smart home systems, heating, security and lighting, because all of these would then reduce running costs and improve the EPC rating. So EPC, we're talking about energy performance certificate. The higher the rating, the better it is in terms of, or the lower the running costs are. And that is becoming an increasingly important matter to modern buyers, basically. And to supplement that, we're going to basically look at, as Sarah's mentioned, real life case studies. I'm going to start that off with a complete bathroom renovation that was part of a larger project, but we'll keep the focus on the bathroom to see how we've dealt with that project at hand. Forgive me for using a lot of 2D drawings, but it's essential for going through it, and we'll look at more photos in a few seconds. So at ground floor level, we're looking at the proposed demolition plan. So for this property, it was a mid-terrace property, split over 3 stories, and that was the only bathroom servicing the whole property. For its size compared to the average bathroom size in London, that was quite a large bathroom, which also had a chimney breast in there. So what we had to do basically to meet the client's brief is to think creatively about what to do with that space to cost effectively address the requirements, which is at least another toilet, so that when they have guests over, the situation can be dealt with easier. If someone is actually taking a shower using the bathroom, someone else can use the WC space. So to keep costs under control and, for example, keeping the soil vent pipe stack where it is and reconnecting everything internally, the optimal layout that was decided upon is seen here on the right-hand side of the slide. And this is a setting out plan that shows how we've then reconfigured that space into a bathroom with a shower enclosure, and then split a split unit, which would include a WC and a utility space that hides a washing machine in there. And then the rest of the plans are just a sneak peek into the other technical details that were produced to make sure that everything is addressed and accounted for, which would then become operational plans for the teams on site to implement the requirements, such as mechanical and electrical plans, and then looking at the elevations that show everything in perspective, especially when it has to do with the fixtures themselves and the tiling and how everything works together. So on to the pictures. So looking at the photos before the renovation, the bathroom was quite dated. Some of the elements there weren't working as they should, and the design was a bit quirky for the client, so they wanted something that goes along basically modernizing and including a lot of the features that we've covered so far. that also fall in under the umbrella of timeless design. As you will be able to make out, they decided to keep one element, which was the bathtub, which had to be retained. It was a steel bathtub with that had, its standalone design feature, so that was incorporated into drawings, and then everything else was proposed around that. Moving on to the next slide, we'll show you some of the photos during the renovation, how everything was cleared out, basically in anticipation of dealing with the chimney breast, where we had to do structural alterations to hold that the stack over that room, and then basically be in a position where we can start closing everything up, resulting in the main bathroom there with the WC accessible from this side, and it shows here from this angle where the washing machine is, and that's the WC with integrated features such as a concealed cistern there. On to case study 2. Here we're looking at a complete overhaul of, again, a mid-terrace property. That one was in Streatham. So we're looking here at axonometric views of the existing and proposed. So from the front side, we're going to be looking here at the changes. So that's in its existing format, and that's the front of the property, and that's the garden. What is being proposed basically in terms of project scope is a loft conversion, a rear extension, a new outbuilding in the back, and full internal remodeling. So that was then the approved scheme by the project owner, which was then submitted to planning and consented. What this scheme adds in terms of value add features is that we will be introducing a master suite at loft level. We're going to be upgrading and modernizing the interiors fully internally, increase in habitable space, and a dedicated work and play space between all the new areas that we're going to be looking at. Here we're going to be looking at, this is a photo before the works begun, and this is during. So this is prepping the foundational work for the outbuilding in the back, and this was the stripping out for the rear of the property. And this is more of a lively model based on the proposed, including the finishes and basically the colors that the client would like. One of the most important features for the client was being able to step into the entry point and being able to see all the way to the back, having that feeling of a front to back, fully open plan configuration that would allow her basically to meet her requirements in terms of lifestyle preferences and so on and so forth. So going into a living room here, which can be again which can be reversible in terms of closing that off, making it a formal reception room, and then that becomes a private quarters with the open plan kitchen and dining with a media wall on this side, and then a demonstration on the garden and the outbuilding itself. And now I'll be handing over to my colleague Ollie, who's going to take us through the last case study and the process of design and build, and how that goes from start to finish. Over to you, Ollie.
Thank you, Sam, and good evening, everybody. So I'm Ollie. I'm from Renovations, part of the Central London team. So yeah, this was a great case study in terms of maximising value to the property. So all in all, I think it was an 80k project investment, and by the end of the project, they had managed to add 150k of value. So they'd almost doubled. It was almost double return on investment by the time it came to the end of the project. So if we look at the existing layout at the top in comparison to the proposed layout at the bottom, the proposed layout is the as-built drawing. So what you can see is they've gone from a one-bedroom flat to a 2-bedroom flat. And this is key. I'll be addressing this point in more detail later, but bedrooms are certainly always king when it comes to adding value to your property. Essentially, what they've done is where the kitchen was, you can see the kitchen was in the middle of the top drawing. And if we look at the bottom drawing, they've shifted the kitchen along because they had a significant amount of space already in the living room and kitchen area, enough space for this kitchen and living space to be an open plan area. And then where the kitchen used to be, this was cordoned off, partitions were created, a lobby area was created. There was quite a lot involved in the design process to make this feasible, because there had to be adequate, all the materials when it came to building the walls had to be fire rated materials. And the second key design factor in this is that this was actually a grade 2 listed building, this particular property. So we had to employ the services of an architect who has significant experience in the local council of Westminster, where this project was, who understood the implications and the process to achieve listed building consent. So we move on to the next slide, which I believe, has just got a few of the after photos. So the top is the kitchen in the living space, the bottom is the bathroom. But again, the key stat here is the fact that we were operating on an 80k project budget, and that was that was the final expenditure from the client to achieve this project, and the end result was adding 150k worth of value against that budget. So the client's still living there now. This project was about a year ago or a year and a half ago now, and they intend to live there for an additional 5 years or so before selling it. But so it was a bit of a balancing act, this project, between creating I think the primary reason they wanted to create the second bedroom is because they had they just had a son. So they'd gone from being a young couple, just the two of them in this property, to then having a third member of the family, their son, who'd since become a toddler and needed his own space. That was actually the primary objective of this project, but the secondary objective was that they intend to move out within the next 5 years and would like to add as much value as they possibly can. And by adding that second bedroom to the property, they were able to add a significant amount of value, and I'm sure they will reap the rewards of that when it comes to selling it and finding a property outside of London is what they've said, but in the country, and a much they'll get a lot more space, certainly. But bottom line is they've added a significant amount of value in comparison to what they spent on getting the project complete. So we move on to the next slide now. So the key to success on any project is in the design and planning stages. So we can't stress enough how important this is when it comes to ensuring that the outcome is as expected, and even more importantly, when it comes to maximizing your return on investment, is keeping the costs of the project under control. So obviously, if return on investment is your primary objective when going into the project, then a budget blowout is going to defeat the primary purpose of the renovation project, and a failed design is going to significantly reduce the extent of value that you add to the property, and also it's likely going to make the project more expensive because certain works are likely to need to be completed twice in order to get it done right. So step one is planning, and we call it scoping and feasibility, whereby a high level design, scope of work and budget indication is produced, and this is going to enable you to understand what you can realistically achieve within the property against your budget, and make an informed decision as to whether or not the project's going to be feasible. So a key tip at the end of this stage is to take the concept designs which are produced and discuss this initial design with a local estate agent or a local valuation surveyor in order to understand the potential property value after the works are all complete. and then compare this to the likely budget that's going to be involved in the project. And then on the basis of that, you can make a judgment call as to whether or not the project is going to be viable from a return on investment perspective. Step 2 then is design and costing, or what we call detailed planning and costing. And this is where we take the high level design and high level scope of work produced as part of phase 1, scoping and feasibility, and we flesh it out. And the design intent is translated into detailed construction drawings, which tradespeople can build to alongside a detailed scope of work. And all fit out selections are agreed before the project starts, and all costed before the project starts. So we're not on site making live decisions as to the locations of sockets, switches, and making live decisions as to, oh, is that bath going to fit in the bathroom of this size, or which bath or shower enclosure is going to go here. Because if we agree all of this up front and we know the costs involved, it's going to ensure, one, that the cost is controlled from the get-go, and secondly, tradespeople aren't wasting unnecessarily time on site trying to figure these things out and wing it, essentially. So of course, this type of thing requires an upfront investment. However, it will pay for itself 10 times over in terms of ensuring that the project runs efficiently, because again, the trades are going to be able to work much faster, and there's going to be much less risk of errors. And all in all, this means that the labour investment required to complete the project is going to be significantly less than if you don't go into it with a defined design and defined scope of work. And then stage 3 is the build stage. So steps 1 and 2 are followed to the T. You don't need to worry too much about this stage. And if you're working with a dedicated project manager and architect, they will oversee the project and ensure that the trades on site are building as per the agreed design and specification, and the results that are set out and agreed to before the contract starts are all adhered to. So we go on to the next slide, which is all about how to control costs, which again is critical if your primary objective is to achieve return on investment and add value to your property. So the reality is this is a huge balancing act, right? So you've got to strike the perfect balance between having a great design, which adds value to the property, whilst also factoring in what that design is going to cost in terms of build costs and labor. And the latter part is where the traditional route of relying solely on an architect can backfire if you're not careful, if your sole objective is adding value to your property and maximizing your return on investment. So, I mean, it goes without saying, hiring an architect is one of the best things you can do to ensure the success of your project. But just factor in that the primary skill set of an architect is understanding the best possible design and use of the space that's involved, which is often going to end in a brilliant design. However, the result is not necessarily striking that optimal balance between the design value and costs of building that are involved in the project. So our preferred approach involves engaging with both an architect and a project manager during the design phases, and often also a quantity surveyor as well for larger projects. And the idea is we get these skill sets all working alongside each other to formulate a plan, bouncing ideas off each other, and between them, they will help ensure that that balance is struck between design, value, and cost. So this is key when the primary objective is maximizing return on investment in a project. But I think it's fair to say that this is important on any project, unless, of course, money is no object. But in today's economy, that's very rare, unfortunately. But the point is, a skilled and technical project manager will be able to review architectural designs, structural designs, etc., that are involved. They'll be able to understand the key cost implications and work with the architects, the engineers, and all parties involved in order to help you as the client ascertain what's a must-have, what's a nice-to-have, and the end result will be a proposal which strikes that optimal balance between design and cost. And yeah, the ability to understand cost implications of designs and structural engineering is ultimately where project managers, where a skilled and technical project manager will pay for themselves 10 times over. We've seen it on countless projects where a structural design will be presented and it's great from a pure design standpoint in terms of what's going to look best aesthetically. However, a skilled project manager will be able to review that and bounce potential alternative structural ideas, which more or less achieve the same result, but cost perhaps a third in terms of the structural steel work and fabrication and labor that's going to be involved in order to achieve that. So in summary, our advice is definitely don't skip on hiring an architect. You definitely want to hire a skilled architect, but have them working together with a skilled and technical project manager. And this is going to help maximize the chances that you strike that balance between design and cost. So on to the next slide, and backed by popular demand is our segment on top tips. So tip number one, and we've said it before and we'll say it again and again and again, but invest the time and monetary investment up front in proper project planning. So unless you've already got great experience managing tradespeople and managing construction programs, you will definitely pay the price if you skip this step. And that's fine for a lot of people. If they're happy with a hands-on renovation experience, they understand the potential risks involved, and they're keen to learn a new skill, that can be a lot of fun. But if your primary objective is to maximize the value of your property, maximize your return on investment, then you definitely shouldn't take the trial and error approach. So again, of course, hiring an architect, hiring a project manager, and all the other relevant professionals up front entails an investment in terms of time and money, and it means the project isn't going to start within a few days of you deciding that you want to engage in the project, but going through this again is going to pay for itself 10 times over by helping you ensure that the project is properly planned and properly executed. Ultimately, if you go into a project without a defined scope of work, specification, design, finishes schedule, etc., when you get builders on site, they're inevitably going to start asking you loads of questions, and you're going to have to make loads and loads of quick decisions, so that because they just want to understand how you would like them to build everything. And the result of this is that the project is going to take significantly longer than it would have taken if there was a clear plan, specification, and design, and all of the fit out selections have been mapped out up front. And yeah, given that skilled trades are going to charge 200 to 400 a day to be on site, these costs can start adding up very, very quickly. So ultimately, that's our philosophy of why you should take the time and invest in the right skill sets to help you oversee the project. Tip two is in relation to design decisions. So yeah, key takeaway I think from this is to view design decisions from a practical standpoint. So Sam ran through this in detail earlier regarding the cost benefit analysis of high end or bespoke designs in comparison to adding value to the property. So obviously there's some key decisions to be made there. And when it comes to practicality, I think the two things to bear in mind, one is bedrooms are king. Anything that's going to add a bedroom to the property is inevitably going to add value to it. And two, cost to build versus value added. So if we look at the different types of projects, which Sam ran through this earlier, obviously there's loads of different things you can do within your property. You can do a loft extension, a garage conversion, a ground floor extension, and certain projects are more return on investment friendly than others. And generally, a loft or a garage conversion is going to give you more bang for your buck than building an extension. And the primary reason for this is, one, it gives the opportunity to immediately add 1 or 2 bedrooms to the property, and two, you're mostly working within an existing structure. And if you're building a ground floor extension, one, you're extending the kitchen and living space, which is great, and that will certainly add value to the property, but not the same amount of value as adding a bedroom. And secondly, a ground floor extension entails alterations to foundations, to drainage, etc., etc. Whereas with a garage or a loft, although there's more than likely to be structural steelwork and engineering involved, 2/3 of it, 2/3 of the structure at least, are pre-existing, and it's just a case of either converting or extending the previous structure. And then on to tip 3. So my favorite word here, synergy. So we discussed earlier the benefit of engaging both an architect and a project manager, and potentially also a quantity surveyor on your project. Now, this approach is going to be far more successful if you engage with a single renovations partner, and the key reason being, again, synergy. So the risk of sourcing your own PM, builders, architects, quantity surveyors, etc., individually, and bringing them all together, is that if they've never all worked together before and they don't have that pre-existing working relationship, then there's a risk of inefficiency and a risk that their styles of working might not necessarily generate the most efficient results. So by working with a single partner, this is going to ensure that all designers, engineers, PMs, all tradesmen, etc., all parties involved in the project have a pre-existing working relationship, understand how one another operate, and the end result is that it maximizes the chances that the project runs efficiently, and it maximizes the chance that the correct balance between designs, costs, and project efficiency is met. And finally, a simple quote, which I think is very relevant to this entire discussion. A bit of alliteration here, but proper prior planning prevents pitiful poor performance. And that is the philosophy behind our approach to design and build. And I'll hand over to Sarah and get into our Q&A.
Thanks, Ollie. That was really good, guys. I can see we do have a question in the chat. So Alfred was just referring back to case study 2, which this is probably more relevant for you, Sam. It's just asking, saying that there was be good to have an indicator of the costs of that project, and there wasn't any after photos in case study 2. So can you speak to that?
So the reason why we don't have any after photos is because this project is currently on site and it's being built. Not as we speak, because guys are at home now, but yeah, this is in the process of being built. It's been on site, I think, for around a month, and we're actually basically getting to a place where we build out the shells, all the shells completely, make the property airtight, watertight, and then start working on everything internal. When it comes to, sorry, was there a second part of the question?
Just the cost. Alfred had asked what the cost was.
Yes, so in terms of ballpark, an indicative cost for a project this type and size would be around the 200K mark. But there is a lot to be discussed in terms of a drill down of what each and every project could cost specifically. And again, that depends on the size of the project, what it entails in terms of scope, what input does it have structurally and otherwise, and then when we talk about finishings, what level of specification, and basically coupling all of that together, and then looking at the complete budget of the project.
Thank you, Sam. I can see a few people are just asking for the recordings. Yes, no problem. I'll be sending you all an email with a copy to the recording. So if you missed either the beginning or you need to shoot off, because I'm sorry, I see we've run over time a bit this evening. So don't worry, you'll get a copy of the recording. Was there any other questions, specific questions that anyone wanted to ask Sam or Ollie? Please feel free to unmute yourself or.
I'm also happy for people, if they have any further questions or would like to, as I said, drill down into specifics on any of the case studies and compare them to what they have, to reach out to us, and we'll go through that on a one-to-one basis.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I can't see anything else there. I'll just double check the chat just in case anything's been popped in that I've missed. And then I'll just, because I'm just aware of time, so I know that some of you may need to hop off now. But I just wanted to thank Sam and Ollie. That was really, I really enjoyed that webinar, and I really enjoyed particularly seeing the photos. I always love the before and afters for me. That I always find them really enjoyable to look at. I will make contact with everybody, so I will flick you all an email with a copy of the recording. So feel free, obviously, to have another watch if that's helpful to you. And we will be running another one in January, so I'll reconnect with you in the new year. Give you the topic and obviously invite you to that. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Obviously, everybody will be having a break soon, I hope. So hope everybody has a little break and enjoys some good time with family. So thanks again, Sam and Ollie, and take care, everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you,
one.
everybody.
Bye-bye.